Hello, my name is Richard Ebeling, and I am the BB&T Professor of Ethics and Free Enterprise Leadership at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. And this is Economic Straight Talk, sponsored by the Future of Freedom Foundation. The United States is potentially at the threshold of a series of dangerous and damaging trade wars with some of its leading trading partners around the world: the European Union, Canada, Mexico, China. The question is why? And the answer can be found in the ideas and the thinking of the man who occupies the Oval Office in the White House in Washington, D.C., President Donald Trump. In Mr. Trump's view of the world, trade is a zero-sum game. If other countries gain, improve, prosper in their trading relationships, there must be some other country or countries that have lost, such as the United States. On the other hand, if the United States prospers, does well, then it must be that our prosperity is due to some other countries being less well off. In his mind, this is captured or indicative in what is called the balance of trade deficit, that one country buys more of the goods and services of another country than that other country buys of one's own nation. Let's try to understand this by doing an example. Suppose that the consumers of the United States were to spend $1,000 on the finished and final goods and services offered for sale by, let's say, manufacturers and sellers in Japan. Americans would have bought $1,000 worth of Japanese goods, and $1,000 of money would have been transferred to those Japanese sellers of those goods. Well, what might those Japanese earners of those dollars do with the dollars they've earned? Well, to begin with, dollars are not usable in Japan. The currency of Japan is called the yen. So we could imagine that they would turn around and perhaps spend $800 on finished American goods and services. Now, at this point, Donald Trump looks at the situation, for instance, and says that America is the loser and the Japanese are the gainers. Why? Because Americans purchased $1,000 worth of Japanese goods, but the Japanese earners of the dollars have only reciprocally bought $800 of ours. In Donald Trump's mind, we have lost by $200. Now, let's pursue this a little further. What can those Japanese earners of those remaining $200 do with them? Well, again, the yen is used as the currency in Japan, not dollars. So we could imagine that some of the Japanese earners of those dollars might decide to directly invest in the U.S. economy. And let us suppose that they were to decide to do this in the value of $100. Now, what does direct investment mean? It means that those Japanese earners of dollars might start a business in the United States, or partner with some existing Americans in a business in the United States, or devote it to expanding a business they already had in the United States. Now, what would happen when they spent that $100 on this direct investment? Well, if they're starting a new enterprise, as an example, they would have to either rent or purchase the land. And part of that $100 of direct investment spending would go to the seller or the renter of the land. The Japanese investor would also have to hire an American construction company to do the building of the facility, the factory in which the business will be undertaken. And again, part of that $100 of direct investment would then be spent on hiring an American construction company. And in turn, that American construction company would be hiring primarily American workers to do the construction of the enterprise's building. Then they would also have to purchase some machinery and tools to house in the factory. And most, if not all of that machinery might again come from American producers of machines. And some of that $100 would flow into their hands. And then finally, either all or a good part of the people employed by that foreign investor in this business would be Americans. And as a result, dollars would flow as salaries to a variety of Americans hired to work in that enterprise. Now, so far we have $800 that the Japanese spent on finished American goods and services, which they imported into their own country, and $100 of direct investment, which comes now to $900. What else could they do with the remaining $100 that they still have? Well, some of those Japanese earners of that remaining $100 may decide to indirectly invest in the United States. Well, what's that? Suppose that you don't want to start a business or run a business, or you don't feel qualified or informed in undertaking an enterprise yourself. You can indirectly invest in enterprise by depositing part of your income in a financial institution, a bank, and your savings are then pooled with the savings of others, and through that financial institution is funneled out to presumably creditworthy borrowers to use the money that you have set aside to undertake the investments that their own income might not have been sufficient to fully undertake. And why do you do that? Because like anyone who saves a portion of their income and puts it in a bank, they expect to, in the future, earn interest income, besides getting their principal back, so as to increase their financial position and their nest egg in the future. Well, let us suppose that these Japanese had done this in the amount of $75. So $800 of buying American goods, $100 of direct investment in either starting up or partnering in an American enterprise right here in America, or investing $75 as an indirect investment by depositing that amount of savings in a financial institution as the basis of earning interest income in the future. Now that still leaves $25. Well, what might the Japanese still do with that $25? Suppose that some of them are interested in purchasing not American goods or even their own Japanese goods, but goods manufactured and sold in the European Union. Well, to do that, you need euros for the most part. So what those Japanese holders of the remaining $25 would do would go into the foreign exchange market and trade away their dollars for euros. Now, who would have sold them those euros? Clearly someone in the foreign exchange market who wanted to have dollars instead. And why would they have wanted to have dollars? Well, either to buy American goods, or to directly invest in the U.S. economy, or to indirectly invest by depositing that sum of money in an American financial institution as the basis of future interest income. Or, well, that's basically it. And then that $25 plus the $75 plus the $100 plus the $800 comes to $1,000. In other words, when all the columns in the ledger book are properly listed and calculated, the debits equal the credits, the expenditures equal the revenues, the balance balances. So the fact is, the fundamental problem with Donald Trump's view of thinking that a balance of trade deficit implies that somehow the United States is being taken advantage of and unfairly treated by other nations is due to a failure to look at that balance sheet and all of the columns and categories of everything that should be included. Direct goods and services, direct investment, indirect investment, all of these, when added together, come to the balance sheet balancing. Trade is always beneficial when undertaken by individuals on the basis of free and voluntary choice. An individual only trades away what he has when he values more highly what another has for sale. And the person selling that item only gives it in trade when he values more highly what the first person is willing to exchange for that item that is in his possession. People specialize in different lines of production, the division of labor. Some people are better at certain things, some people can be more cost efficient at things, and each therefore is better off by specializing in what they are better at in these ways and selling what another person finds desirous and then acquiring what they want from that person. Trade always benefits everyone, and the balance sheet, when properly calculated, always balances. And because of these misunderstandings and miscalculations, the United States is possibly on the threshold, as I said, of those dangerous and damaging trade wars merely because President Trump needs some serious economic straight talk. This has been Richard Ebeling, sponsored by the Future of Freedom Foundation. For more information about FFF, please go to the website, fff.org, as well as FF's videos on YouTube, where many ideas on domestic and foreign, economic, and political policy is available for analysis and study. Thank you for joining us.